Welcome, Vols and Lady Vols, to Power T Talk. From the Cathedral of Neyland Stadium to the fanatical landscape of college sports, we're breaking down the plays, the players, the portal, and the pride of the Southland. I'm Daniel, your host, here with my comrade and co-host, Zach. Grab your orange and white. Let's run through the tea. It's time to give our all for Tennessee. This is Power T Talk. We'll start with the basketballs and kind of chagrin to start there, but it's just one of those things where the way I chalk it up genuinely, having watched the Kentucky game, is that I actually do think this team has routes to get a lot better over through SEC play, but it does seem like they are going to have some rough ones. Unless we're just willing to throw out results, it's pretty clear they're going to have some rough ones over the next few weeks.
We talked on Wednesday. Life was going on, and we're like, you know what? Let's just record. We're both off on today, Martin Luther King Day. Let's just take it off, get one more game, a conference basketball. That's 5 games. That's something to work with. And so I wrote up my notes in Thursday, Friday night, working on it, getting some Ken Palm stats in. And I'm like, there's a good path here. Okay, there's some stuff to work with. Like, yeah, definitely need to work. And then you blow a 17-point lead to Kentucky. Maybe the worst second half of the Barnes era in, I don't know, 3 years or so. Pretty close to it, it felt like. And they collapsed. I mean, that's not even a good Kentucky team. Like, that was kind of the scary part of that, is that's not a good Kentucky team. You know, if you're in there and Illinois does that to you, like, I think you can live with that, or Florida. Last year's Florida team specifically, like, okay, that's fine. But to have that Kentucky team come in and just out-tough you and really mentally out-tough you as well was really disappointing. And then you can tell how frustrated Barnes is because he keeps bringing up Zakai and Jemai. And it's like, I have very few criticisms of Rick overall, and it's like, I don't think this is helping bringing those guys up in middle of January and after the 5th SEC game, but that's how frustrated he is with this basketball team. And honestly, I am not having fun. This is not a fun team. You look at the last 2 years, like, they were so fun to watch, even when they hit their offensive lulls, and they're just not right now. Like, that, it's literally, did Gillespie hit enough 27-footers to win a basketball game? And it's really frustrating.
Well, and you expressed concerns, and I mean, it's proving true so far. You expressed concerns before the season about, like, we knew Gillespie could fill it up, but it was strange to have the person who could fill it up, like the Lanier role or connect role, be such a different player from those guys. Mm-hmm. Still can score, but it's such a different role on the team. He's the primary ball handler, whereas those guys were like, it didn't really matter if they were cold overall. They were going to get hot at some point, and they weren't responsible for handling the ball while they were cold. And so I don't know if you got this feeling, but I don't know if it was just like the season has been a little more average than we wish it was for basketball. But when they cut it to not even like tie or anything, but when they got it closer in the second half, and the announcers were saying the whole, like, Tennessee, once leading by 16, is now just trying to cling to the 5-point lead. I was like, we're not going to win. Mm-mm. And it wasn't even just like negativity. I was just like, sometimes your gut is right on this stuff. You and I have talked about this. Sometimes it's wrong, and you don't remember those times, and so maybe you're more confident in your gut than you should be. But there are times where you get the flow of a game, and you're like, oh, this is going to just stay a little dry for our team for a while. And Kentucky is bringing energy, and it doesn't seem like we can match. It doesn't seem like we can return serve on that. And, which the part of that was really frustrating is there were moments where I thought that Ament was all over the place. I thought he was grabbing some boards. He was affecting the game in multiple different parts of the floor, which he's struggled with a couple times this season. And so to have that be progressing and have Gillespie sometimes fill it up, but then just like be careless with the ball and nobody's really filling in the gap there in a ball handling thing, it's they were just gonna overcome the deficit at some point.
I think what's really frustrating and what's funny is the offensive numbers were good, but Tennessee was so good the first 15 minutes. I think that it overshadowed like how poor they played the last 25 minutes offensively. They finally found something, putting Nate at the 4, and he kind of took over in the
Well,
Texas A&M game,
you
which was,
suggested this before the season as well.
and I know I was like, okay, I think Barnes has finally realized, yes, this roster implies to play with 2 bigs, but it just feels like it's not going to work. And he went right back to the 2. He went right back to the 2 big system, and just like Jalen Carey running half the sets. Like, just, it's like, is Gillespie putting up a 28-footer this possession? Nope. All right, Jalen Carey in the post with 8 seconds on the shot clock. And Carey's a fine player. He definitely has a role, but this is way too much Jalen Carey offense for me. Way too much. I mean, they run the half-court offense through him, and
If
he's an okay post finisher. He's undersized, so you can put some length on him. He can't pass. He doesn't have a right hand. He doesn't have a face-up game. And it's like a worse version of Jerron Maimon, which even in 2012 was like, are we sure you want to run your offense through Jerron Maimon? And that's not a shot at Maimon. I love Maimon. But it's like, I'm flabbergasted. They go to the stretch 4 for 2 straight years, and they put up their best offensive efficiency since Grant's junior year. And they just went back to it, and it's like Brick won't adjust. I don't know if they promised Nate he would play the wing, but in today's basketball, if you play the 4, you play the wing. Like, Jason Tatum is a 4. He's not posting up guys unless it's a mismatch or something. I don't get it. And I mean, here's the other thing, Daniel. The only reason it's not worse is because they're the best offensive rebounding team in the country. They rebound 44% of their own shots, which seems impossible. I went back. That would be the highest offensive rebounding percentage by a team since 2011. That's 15 years ago. I'm sure you remember that 2011 Old Dominion Monarchs team. But I mean,
definitely.
think about that for a second. I mean, if they didn't, we might be looking at a 500 basketball team if they did not rebound this many misses. I mean, they beat Houston by 3 because that's their offensive rebound. They beat Texas A&M because of their offensive rebounding. Like, that's 2 games right there. You look at it and you're like, oh my God, they're now 10-8 and they're on the bubble. And I don't think they're going to miss the tournament, but the way that they structure their offense right now is not compatible in 2026 SEC play. And then you add the fact they don't shoot free throws well. And they turn the ball over.
They don't shoot free throws well, and there's not a ton of dudes that get to the line. Like, I don't know. For it to be a home the officials, it's not even a comment on the officials, but for it to be a home game and only 2 people really get to the line. And I don't know. It's just like there need to be guys that aren't Ament and Gillespie that are making free throws and getting free throws. And we didn't get out rebounded. It's not like it was a turnover fest. Like, Gillespie was sloppier with the ball than we wanted, but it's not like we had 19 turnovers. And there were stretches where Ament was very, very difficult to guard. But it's just there's these other stretches where, I mean, again, like, some of this is because Gillespie got to the line, but like Carey and Gillespie had the same amount of attempts from the field. And if there's a game where that happens due to offensive rebounding, we can live with that. And like, we had a couple early on where Carey was just throwing his weight around down there. But that's not what you want the system to be. I don't know. That cannot be the design. It can happen. It can be the result of a game, but it can't be the design of a game. It's not going to work.
Well, and if they had 3 shooters, if they had Gillespie and 2 other guys like Gillespie on the perimeter, I'd be more fine with the strategy. Or if Carey could pass the ball, I would be more okay with the strategy. The problem is they're running Bishop Boswell out there and, for a majority of the game, and they need him. Like, they have
And
to
that
have it.
it's just not what he does.
It's not what he does. They're throwing out JP Estrella, who is doesn't shoot threes. They throw out Akpara and they throw out Dwayne Brown. Amari Evans doesn't really shoot the three, although he did hit one against Kentucky. And it almost feels like Amari's just taking them because he has to. Like, like I don't think it's because him or Rick thinks he's a good shooter. They just need someone to chuck him up. And I don't. I know the transfer portal. They went after wings that could shoot, like they did. I remember. I was reading the reports and everything, So I get it, but it goes back to your roster building. It's like we're going to take Jalen Carey. Like we're going to do that. We're going to put a focus on him. They got him early. They decided to bring in Ethan Berg, 23 years old, who can't play in the SEC. Like that's a bad miss. I understood what they were doing with Amari Abram. He's not really contributing. He got 5 minutes in the Kentucky game. So it goes back to the transfer portal, and Barnes has been so good in it the last 3 years that he probably was bound to have this. Like it was bound to have a bad one. But at the same time, you knew you were recruiting Ament before the transfer portal. Like you felt good about it. Like you would think like, okay, we're going to play an Ament at the 4, and then we're going to surround shooters with Gillespie and everyone. And they just didn't do it. And it's costing them. And again, you look at it, they're 298th in the country in 3-point scoring right now. And what's even crazier, Daniel, is they shoot 35% because of Gillespie. They're 125th in the country. But it's literally just their only shooting is Abram if he's feeling it, which he didn't play enough defense, so Barnes doesn't want to play him, or Gillespie 20-something footers. They don't have anything else. Think of how many off-ball designs they ran for Lanier and Connect the last 2 years. How creative it was.
And varied, and even if it didn't go well for a half, it was going to look different in the second half. When it's just Gillespie with the ball in his hands, you just can't get to as much stuff when no one else is a threat. Not to circle back, but like Carey, again, he crashes the offensive glass, obviously important to our success so far. Shot 12 times and didn't get to the free throw line.
And by the way, Tennessee shot 29 free throws. Kentucky's 21 on Saturday.
Yeah.
So it's not like, we've got Kentucky got the favorable whistle like we've seen before. We did shoot 8 more free throws than them. So it's not like the rest weren't calling anything. 29 free throws in a game against Kentucky, I will take that 99 out of 100 times.
Yeah, and I don't know, it's one of those where there are maybe stretches of the schedule where we find a little bit of momentum. Like the SEC is not a mega gauntlet the way it felt last year, but it's balanced enough. And this is kind of the logic I put forth to some college football teams sometimes and some NFL teams is like, I think sometimes fans get in the mindset of it is possible for us to win that game. Therefore, if we play well, it's a win. And it's like, as soon as it's possible for you to win that game, it's also possible for you to lose that game. And so when you look at an Alabama, a Georgia, at Kentucky, we're going to have to play Vandy twice. Like every single one of those could be the game where we find our footing and we have some momentum. Those could also be the games where we play like crap and we don't win. And so, again, like I said, I don't expect us to end up on the bubble, but we haven't shown enough for us to be like trending toward any kind of high seed at this point. We're going to be fighting for it tooth and nail. And we have some dudes who are willing to fight. Just quickly, like at the end of the game, I didn't see as much. I missed the end of the game where it was like I had the feeling we were going to give it away, and then we were running some errands, and I missed the very end. But I saw that the very, very end. I saw the scuffle. For all the frustrations of the game, like that seemed like a couple people doing a little bit of extracurriculars, jawing and carrying a mint, sticking up for each other in a way, and not really taking that kind of crap, especially on their home floor. And that's fine. So there is still that fight. It seems like there's still that togetherness on this team. It does seem like these guys care. they're just not playing well enough. And I guess I'd rather have that than a they don't care situation where they are playing good, but you feel like it's going to fall apart. But I was actually not that I want benches clearing, but I was excited to see them stand up for each other at the end of the game after a frustrating loss because it shows they're all still in it. They got to start getting a streak going. They've been playing this one on, one off game, and you can't do that for so long.
Yeah, I think the fighting thing I didn't really care about. I mean, we've seen so much worse. It
Yeah,
was just a little pushing
it was
and
just
shoving.
guys jawing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just a little jaw and whatever. Kentucky got a little over enthusiastic. That's a big win for them. Like they needed that. So I get it. It's a big rivalry. You're right near the bench as well. So I didn't really bother me. I mean, sure, it's cool that you showed a little fight. You also blew a 17-point lead. So it's like,
Yes, exactly.
and you got mentally out toughed. Like that's also part of it. You can do that if Kentucky shot like 15 to 31 from three and you're like, oh, we just lost because they outbombed us. It's not what happened. So that's part of it.
This
I
next
think
stretch
too.
is going to be really interesting. Like
Yeah.
playing Bama, playing Georgia, who are a little bit better than maybe we thought preseason or whatever. But then like that little stretch ending with going to Lexington
Mm-hmm.
is going to tell us a lot about this team one way or another. I mean, we've alternated wins loss since in the new year, essentially. Like we knew we would do whatever we wanted against Gardner Webb and South Carolina State, like obviously. And then since we started SEC play, it's just been one on, one off. And that pattern gets you to a disappointing place at this point.
I mean, and they've had, let's see, they're 3 home games so far in the SEC too. The next 2 are away. I mean, that's going to be difficult. I mean, KenPom has them at 20-11 with a 10-8 conference record.
Yep.
That'll get you in the tournament, but you're right. That high seed, I mean, you're talking 7, 8, 9. I mean, that's a change from what we've been used to the last 3 years, last 4 years when you think about it. I think too, part of it is defensively, they do a great job not giving up threes. But a concern I had was teams were shooting like less than 28% against them. That number's now at 30.1. That's still top 35. It's not top 5. And here's the other thing is teams, 46% of their field goal attempts are threes. So you got a situation where Tennessee's 297th in the country in shooting and taking threes or shooting threes. And they're 298th in the country in their 3-point distribution. And teams are 54th against them. So it's like these teams are shooting threes. And even if they don't hit all of them, it's causing enough of Kentucky outshot them by 3, 11-8 in that game. And Kentucky shot 24 and Tennessee shot 19. There's your ball game. It's a 2-point game. So you've got this weird offense that they get to the free throw line a decent amount, but they don't hit them enough. They're like bottom 30, I think, the Houston game, if I saw that correctly. So they're bottom 30 since the Houston game, or at least since the month of December. They're shooting like 63, 64%. So you combine that. And here's the other thing. If they didn't turn the ball over, they'd probably be even more okay because they're 284th in the country in turnover percentage. They turn it over 19% of the time. So they get an offensive rebound 44% of the time, and they turn the ball over 19% of the time. So they're basically missing a shot or they're turning the ball over 62, 63% of the time.
That's crazy to think about.
That's really bad. And that doesn't include the fact that they don't shoot threes.
That's the other thing I was going to say is like if you have these guys, I mean, we turned the ball over like mad against Florida, like they just ran all over us, and they weren't even hot from 3. They just had the ball. But when you have this scenario where like we're just purely in wait and see mode at this point on whether someone finds their stroke shooting, and when you are doing that offensively, when that is like so many possessions are ending in a turnover or again like in an offensive rebound. How in the world do you even expect some of these guys to find a rhythm offensively? And like at a certain point, that becomes like guys just start knocking it down. But structurally, it just doesn't seem like we're setting people up to even find a rhythm if it is in there somewhere. And so it just puts me in wait and see mode on whether someone starts shooting the ball at all.
Yeah. I mean, they have to play Henderson just because he will shoot it. Like, I think Rick will probably pull his hair out playing him all year, but they have to, I would give him 15 minutes just because I know he'll shoot 3 or 4 a game at this point. He took that one late against Kentucky. He missed it. I was like, hey, at least somebody did. Like, at least it was an attempt. Like, Boswell, I mean, even when Boswell shoots it, you could just tell it looks, and he's got a good percentage, but it looks unnatural. And I mean, I'm like Berg, like I just, God, I hate to just throw it on one person. That looks like such a waste. Just in general, like I thought he would come in and be a nice little 15-minute player, and he could shoot. Like you've watched the film, you're like, okay, that guy's got a nice stroke, and he just doesn't. It's like they'd almost be better just to play him off ball at this point. They just don't have enough there, and I don't know. I don't have the answer right now.
Mm-mm.
And
I'm in the same boat. Yeah.
part of it too is they thought Ament was going to be a 35-36% shooter. He's
Yeah.
10 of 41 since the Houston game from 3. And I want to ask you, I have thoughts on Ament. I'm more of an NBA guy than you, so I think I can, like, okay, like I can see this for him or whatnot. Like, what is your thoughts on him right now? Because to me, like, there's obviously a world of talent. What I put was it's just too robotic. And I'm curious what your thoughts on him overall have been so far in the first 20 games of the year.
Too robotic and not enough strength at this point to be that robotic. As in, you can be a little bit more like, you need things to go a little bit right if you have the physicality to get where you need to go and shove around for some more stuff on the glass. But when he's like a little bit, just a tiny bit slight, if you're going to be slight like that, you have to be a little bit more fluid. You can't be rigid. And it seems like that's sort of messing things up right now. At the same time, when he's been at the 4, when he's been not asked to be on the wing constantly, but ends up at the wing because he's long and because he can play defense and because he can get a board that's bouncing side to side, I've actually sort of liked him locking down a couple defensive rebounds and starting some possessions. There's been some stuff I like, but I saw one of those, way too early mock drafts the other day that had him, I think, 7th or 6th.
ESPN did, yeah.
And I just think that, I mean, the NBA draft is funny in that, like, after the clear-cut early contributors, it gets into, like, you're hoping a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know what people would be pulling from unless there's just so much faith in these NBA programs now that they're going to fix shooting. They're going to bring shooting along. If you tell me he's suddenly a knockdown perimeter shooter, it's a different ballgame. But we haven't seen that go the right direction. I think a lot of NBA teams have faith that they can get people there. Well-founded faith. But right now, the shooting is not going the right direction, and he's a tweener a little bit on position.
Well, he's 6'10", 7'1" wingspan, and he tries hard on defense. So like that, that immediately, and he's 18. So like immediately NBA scouts.
Exactly.
And the other thing is too, not that I'm saying Barnes can't teach people how to shoot. That's not what I'm saying. But NBA teams always think they know how to teach shooting way more than
100%.
Than college coaches. So it's like, oh, hey, 6'10", 7'1" plays defense. We can turn him to a 35% shooter. Like, my hope was when I was watching him, he reminded me a lot of Michael Porter Jr., who was the number 1 kid in the country, and unfortunately had a back injury at Missouri with Conzo Martin that derailed his college career. I remember watching him thinking, like, man, this guy's like not Durant. Like, people want to say Durant. It's like, no, there's no such thing. But you could see a little bit in there. To me, the thing I would say with Nate, and this is a scouting term, so I don't want to act like I'm super smart about this stuff, but like no natural flow to his offensive game. Like nothing just seems easy for him unless it's on a cut. Like everything is working hard, everything's, contested. There just isn't that natural first step that you look for in NBA players, at least big time NBA players or even like starting level NBA players. Like I think, another Tennessee guy, I remember watching Tobias as a freshman. He's Nate's the highest ranked one. So it's Tobias. Even then you're like, okay, there's a natural ability, flow, athleticism, first step. to Tobias's game that you can't teach, and he still went 19th.
Well, and there were times with Tobias in college where it was maybe unpolished, but if he had
Hmm.
the right guy on him, you were not stopping him off the ball, like on the ball. Like he was getting whatever shot he wanted. Whereas Nate, sometimes it has to come from a different, like you said, a cut or a different part of the offense instead of him with the ball. And especially when you're not a knockdown shooter right now. I mean, I'm just waiting for that moment where he just is squared up with a defender and pulls up and shoots and cans one. And it just
Hmm.
doesn't happen enough.
Right. And I mean, he's still shooting 49% from inside the arc,
Yeah.
which is kind of impressive considering how many mid-range jumpers he's been taking. And he's shown a pretty good touch, around the rim. What also isn't helping him is his offense. And I won't even go extend more, just okay, he plays the 3, should be playing the 4. There's not enough shooting around him. They don't run good stuff for him, in my opinion. This is a guy who should be getting some dribble handoffs. Like that quick, not that he's super quick, but the long strides
Get
that
him
he
moving.
has,
Yeah.
get him moving. 9 backdoor cuts for him. Put him in. They've worked a little bit, but like if you're going to play him at the 3, then get him down in the post. Part of the problem is when Jalen Carey and Felix Okpara are there, you're basically running a 1970 post offense, so that hurts. But like there isn't anything that's helping him that's designed right now. It's just the motion offense that Rick runs, which is normally decent enough. That's one thing I never loved is the offense, but like enough to where it needs to be a little more creative. Like they don't run any flex sets. Like that's a guy who should be able to get some flex sets and yeah, part of it's Nate just doesn't have natural ability to score. Like he doesn't have a floater. He doesn't have like a natural step back. He doesn't look super confident in his left hand. So all of that is fair. With that being said, you lose Cade Phillips. It's like they're just like, okay, we'll just play Dwayne Brown more. And I love Dwayne Brown. I think he's going to be awesome. And it's just like this just isn't creative enough right now. It's like the offense in 24 for football. We talked about like, yeah, the system works. We know that, but there's not enough counters, and they don't have enough counters.
It's a lot of carbon copy stuff where it's like we have a little gap here, but we have someone to fill that, and it might be 85% as good to fill that, and so everything's a tiny bit worse, and you're trying to do the same stuff. And then I haven't quite figured out. You know more. You're much better at analyzing the flow of an offense than me, but I do think there's something just missing in the flow of the person who can fill it up the most is the only reliable ball handler. It
Mm-hmm.
seems like sometimes in college that works brilliantly, and sometimes in college that completely mutes the offense because that guy's usually a little smaller and he can't get his shot off as much, and he has so many other responsibilities, and he's maybe a little more tired on defense. I just think that there are times where some of the sloppiness in the second half from Gillespie is he tries to be explosive at all times, and that's not always going to work. And he's been doing everything all game. And so these turnovers start to build up because he's just kind of at the end of his rope sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And all at the same time might not be quite the scorer that Linear Connect was. And so it's a little bit like it's just barely off and barely not as good. Do you see a path for Nate? Like, do you have this vision of we go through this conference schedule, and then around conference tournament time, suddenly there is a route to him turning it on and he scores 29 in a game? Or are you at the point where you're like, I just don't know if that's on the table? And this isn't me being negative. I think, like we said, there's still every single projectable thing from an NBA perspective. We talked about a preseason. He was never going to go number 1 in the draft. He was never Kevin Durant, and he never needed to be. We were not setting those expectations for him. But I'm wondering now if you're like, oh, this is like longer term shooting development type of
Mm-hmm.
conversation, or if you feel like there will be a game where he stares down a defender who plays too far off of him, knocks down a 3, and then has a powerful dunk, and suddenly we're off to the races.
It's really funny because if you give him, so he's 20-72 from 3-point land right now. If he hits 8 more of those, and he's had a lot of good looks, it's 39%. And all of
Yeah.
a sudden, it's a totally different conversation, right? We're like, oh, hey, Nate's really good. Like, yeah, he's not perfect, and maybe he's not quite as explosive we were hoping. But, it's funny how that changes, right? Or if he hits, I mean, he's literally, 8 more three-pointers away, about, 8 more free throws made away, and he's a 50, 40, 80 player.
And then we're projecting off of that instead.
Exactly. Yeah. And you're like, oh, wow, this guy's got a lot of talent. So, yeah, and you got to hit threes, but 72 is also a small sample size. Like, that's not, I mean, and NBA teams will tell you they want like 500 threes before
Yep.
they'll make a full judgment on a guy. I can see a path if the 3-point shooting starts hitting where it's like, okay, his numbers are overall better. The problem I'm having is with how the offense is, it's just there doesn't seem an easy way, as we talked about his natural flow when he's playing. There doesn't seem to be an easy way for him to get easy buckets. And I think that's more offensive strategy or offensive design more than Nate himself. And I don't know what that fix is other than just him hitting more shots, like at this point. And maybe he can. I mean, he's a freshman, right? He didn't play on these big AAU teams. Like, he's from a small school. He played with his buddies, and I respect that, especially in 2026. But there's a reason Cooper Flagg went to Montverde for 2 years, and there's a reason why Derek Queen went to Montverde and all that. Like, they're there for a reason. So you play against your level of competition as you grow. So I just think if he hits more shots, then yeah, it's going to be way better. Don't get me wrong. But I don't see a way where like the light bulb clicks and all of a sudden he's putting up 20 a game and shooting over 50%. I just don't, with how it's, and I'm not blaming all of it on him. I'm not blaming it all over Rick. Just the combination of it, I don't see it right now. And it doesn't help Gillespie. The whole Carey thing just boggles my mind. And I'm not trying to take shots at Jalen Carey. It just feels like if they had gotten a 3-and-D wing instead of him, this is a better basketball team.
Yeah, I mean, in a vacuum, we need the contributions that he's providing. It just
and
doesn't make
that's the
sense
funny
in the
part of
overall
it.
context. Yeah.
Yeah. If he wasn't on the team, if they just left that spot open, or they brought in a Clarence, Masamba freshman who's not going to play this year, they're probably, 500 instead of 12-6. So it's a really weird like situation where it's like, hey, they made the wrong incoming transfer bet, but they also need him.
Yeah, it's one of those where I kind of want intentionally like take a snapshot of this moment of all fans of like how you feel about the team, about Ament right now. It's not to say that we promise it's going to get better by any means, but I do think like you're allowed to just kind of like, and I don't mean this to oversell what we do as fans, but you're allowed to just be in the foxhole with your team and care about your team. And if
Mm-hmm.
you are at that point right now where you're like, golly, what a frustrating loss to probably our most hated basketball rival. Okay, well, if he goes to Lexington and scores, or if he goes to Lexington and we out tough them, or if we see that growth, like, let's just see. It's just like we said with football with some of the frustration and gets frustrating to talk about the frustration at a certain point. But there's a whole lot of season left still. And if we do see that progression, if we do see them kind of rise to the moment in a couple of these games, I think it's going to be really fun. There's also going to be some frustrating ones along the way. There's just some quality teams out there that I think will score on us and stifle us a little bit.
The other thing too that just I don't care. The defense is not that fun. Like, I get it. I know Barnes gets frustrated. JP Estrella's got to play more. Like, if you're going to do this with two bigs, then you got to play Estrella more because he can shoot a little bit. And he shoots 68% from twos. Like, that's compared to Jalen Carey, who's shooting 52%. Like, think about that. So it's like, okay, we're going to run this. And I get it. Carey rebounds better than Estrella. I totally understand that. But if you're going to run 15 post shots a game for somebody, at least divide it a little bit so Estrella is getting more, because Estrella can put it in the basket. The other thing I want to mention, one other thing about Carey's, Ken Palm has percentage of shots. So essentially, what's your percentage of shots when you're on the floor that you take? It meant 26.3. So when Nate's on the floor, he takes 26.3% of the shots, it ends in his possessions end with a shot or whatever. Jalen Carey's 26.2.
I mean, that's not It is
Imagine telling
not
you
the
that at the
ratio we
beginning of the
want.
season. No, it's not. And Jacoby's 29.3 to put it in perspective. So it's like 90% of the time, if one of those three on the floor, they're the one shooting. There's just not enough spacing. And the other thing I would say is Tennessee has two guys who've hit 23s this year. We're at 18 games. That's just you can't win with that.
No, and you don't have anyone who, and again, maybe partially because of what you just said, when there's a certain group on the floor, 90% of possessions end, roughly around 90% end with them. There's no one that is there as like the ancillary guy who is going to score 12 points from beyond the arc. Like we just have
Mm-hmm.
not had that really at all. And again, some of that could come from freshmen, and so maybe it comes along. But I just think there's so many examples of like it's like the pickup game where you might think you're in a decent shooting mode that day, but you touch the ball one time in 4 runs,
Mm-hmm.
and then you airball that shot. It's like that's not. There's absolutely no way you're going to feel comfortable and get hot if everything is happening away from you. Um, and we have guys who are willing to fill that role, but we need them to score, so they have to be involved.
I have one more thing to end on a positive note. I know in today's world, the transfer portal, you can't really guarantee anything. I am been looking at that 2018 down Vince Henderson, Senior Boswell. Holy hell, could that be an awesome core right there? Add a big. Estrella could be a fifth-year big potentially, or just add another big or add another shooter to that group in a couple of years. Like I'm excited about this freshman class. I don't know if they'll all stay. I hope they do, but Brown, Evans, and Henderson are a really nice ancillary core to build around.
Like paying their dues right now and going through an
Yes.
SEC schedule and like really, I think could be punching above their weight by the end of the season because of the experience they're going to get. So
Yes.
speaking of the transfer portal and new faces and new places, we are going to the best of our ability. And I mean, I don't know at this point if Eric Ainge has more eligibility and he could come back. I don't know if I don't know. Like my head has been spinning on this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to try to talk about kind of players we lost, players we got in the transfer portal, and then I think more importantly, maybe what that leads to the two deep looking like. And that's guessing a little bit on who's going to fill what role. But again, it's our starting point. It's our baseline before spring. And we're going to learn a lot throughout spring. And so I would say big picture first. I think if you're a Vols fan, overall in the portal, I think you have to be relatively happy. I think you have to paint yourself a little bit of a picture on the offense. But overall, some of the gaps we absolutely needed to be filled or next season would be just another slog defensively, really got filled in ways that we're excited about and not in ways that we're having to tell ourselves a story. Like I think there's genuine reason for excitement. I think there are big question marks that remain, and we'll talk about those. But it's going to be extremely interesting. And this is from the perspective of like, we love analyzing these things and seeing how it shakes out. It's going to be extremely interesting to see what the defensive rotation actually looks like, because this is a guess for us. Lightly educated guess, but a guess. And my final thought is, before we kind of jump into who we got and the two deep, there was a point, and I'm still a little bit there, where it was like out of nowhere, Arian Carter is going to play for like whoever, that I was like, this stuff has gotten so stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And him returning to Tennessee, obviously I like Arian Carter. We all know this. Him returning to Tennessee didn't completely quell the thoughts of some of this stuff being stupid. But we are so far past losing the plot on some of this stuff. It's just become, it is so exhausting to try and think about what the heck is going on. And so now, with that in mind, that's what we're about to do. So come along for the ride.
Yeah. The first thing about Arian, extremely happy he's back.
Totally.
That's a big win. And I'm not criticizing him. This wasn't a him thing. He gets his NFL draft grades, has second thoughts, and then he probably goes to the staff, be like, hey, I want to come back. And they're like, we've made some promises to people. Like, we've got to take care of those. And he has to enter a transfer portal, and the staff's probably like, oh, hey, Arian's back. We need to find an extra, however much
Exactly.
he's worth, to convert that. And they did. So good job by the staff. But it is stupid that Arian's like, hey, actually, I'm not going to go pro. I don't like my draft grade. I want to come back. And for an in-state kid, we have to have him in the transfer portal so we can get the funds for him. Like, that's losing the plot, man. Like, that's just, I don't like that. But with that being said, having him back is a big win for the program. That's a 2-year starter, going to be a 3-year starter, your senior leader, your defensive leader, going to be playing with a better defensive coordinator. Like, that's awesome. And you pair him with Amari Campbell, who's been a very good college linebacker. All of a sudden, you are turning a dud of a room when he announces he's leaving before the transfer portal into a big strength. Like, this is a strong group now. And you're like, cool, Spillman's in here, Perlotti, Harmon. You know, you've got some experience with Thielander and Bolden. I'll just say that. Like, this is now all of a sudden a group that has become a strength. And then they redid the safety unit as well. I mean, they're bringing in 4 safeties technically that I think all could play.
Yeah, this is like, and in a way, with this system and no rules on it and no clarity on it and all the like promises layered on agents, like, in some ways I feel really bad for some of the kids who are just like, yeah, there's some bad actors here, but I think actually probably more of the bad actors are on the coaching and agent side.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids are just,
Especially the agent side.
yeah, they're just thrown into the wood chipper of this opportunism. And so I do think about some of it has to just be a whirlwind for these guys heading into spring. It's already, I'm sure, a whirlwind when you're fighting for a spot at a major program and things like that with a new coach, et cetera. And so I think there is, I mean, this sounds silly right now in the context, but I think there is some value in pausing and thinking about some of these that are like 19 or 20-year-olds who have been told that they're starting / not starting / starting immediately / need to work to be a starter / no, we're bringing somebody in probably 45 times since the season ended. And so I just think that it has to be chaotic. And so I hope that they can land it. I'm going to, do you want to go through the portal ads first, or do you want me to go down what I have in essentially the 1 deep, not the 2 deep necessarily, and you point out where you think people are misplaced?
Let's do the 2 deep.
Okay.
And then if I hear a transfer, after a position, I'll enter.
Okay. So I'm doing this as like not off the cuff, like trying to think about what it's going to look like, but not 100% knowing every portal guy and not 100% knowing exactly what the scheme's going to look like. And
checking
so,
the phone, make sure we haven't added anyone,
honestly,
anyone since
Rico McCoy actually had another year of eligibility. And so,
hey, loved Rico.
I would welcome him back with open arms.
Man, I loved Rico. He was good.
Yeah. And so, and again, I think the main thing is we kind of paused on recording this episode because we were like, we want this to like close, and then we take a breath, and then but it's like it never closes, it never stops.
I know, it never
I
stops.
think we're maybe 1 or 2 little funky things away from legitimately someone playing for a different roster twice in the same season.
Yeah, I could absolutely. I mean, with the college basketball midseason editions, we're getting there. Are we going to start with defense first? I think
start with defense. Offense is so much more clean.
Right.
And so we'll start with defense.
Except for quarterback.
Yeah. We're not going to talk about that. So defense, I'm going to start defensive end and then just head on down. I'm going to go starters first. I have along the line Weathersby, Gilliam, who's a transfer.
Mm-hmm.
I have Hobbs at defensive tackle, and I have Coleman at the other defensive end.
Yeah. Coleman and Gilliam and Hobbs, I feel very confident in as starters.
We didn't get to say this a whole lot last year. That's potential for some dogs right there.
Coleman's like first round talent. Like, that's the big one. Like, that's the guy, the star transfer they pulled in. Gilliam's going to be an NFL player. And he's got really good size to him. He can do both. He can play 3 downs. That other end spot's interesting because in terms of snap counts, since Ross and Herring left, it would be Weathersby based off that. But I mean, Marion Dye showed a little promise, and he's bigger. Like, I could see him there, especially if they let Coleman be more.
Especially. Let me paint it
Yeah.
one different way and see if you like this more.
Sure.
You ready?
Hmm.
This isn't a shot at Weathersby. It's just a different way of painting it. Starting with defensive end again. Hobbs, Gilliam, Robinson, Coleman.
So you move Hobbs to strong side, which there have been rumors that's kind of what they're going to do. I wonder if
He
Utley
seems to
or
fit the what this defensive coordinator likes a defensive end size wise.
that's true. Yeah. And, he might be able to lose 15, 20 pounds. Tennessee had him as a defensive tackle. I think he was what, like 305, I'd probably
Mm-hmm.
say, maybe 300. So I don't think 15, 20 pounds would be the end of the world. Does he have that explosiveness? I don't know. But the way they played defensive line's pretty kind of what Knowles does anyway, like what they've done previously. Like you have a Leo and then you have 3 down linemen. And Coleman's 250. So like he's bigger than what we've seen with Joseph Herring and Ross. Like those guys were 235. I think that would be good too. I actually have some hope for this defensive tackle group compared to last year. I think just Campbell and Utley,
Mm-hmm.
Robinson, another
Campbell Utley
year.
Robinson is good depth.
Yes. And maybe those are like guys you wish were second string, and that's fine if Hobbs stays in there or if Gilliam, maybe they bring in one more guy. Yeah, the edge group's a little not quite as deep as we've seen. They lost Ross Herring and Jaden Lofton as well. I know they have a couple of guys coming into the recruiting class, so it might be something where a freshman pops as well. That's a possibility too. So I think I could see it going either way in terms of which way they go. Hobbs would make sense as a strong side defensive end. They don't quite have like that nose tackle guy you would hope for, but
I
because
know
Gilliam's I think
that holds it
305,
down,
but
like quietly affects everything. Yeah,
yeah, and that's kind of what Ohio State did with Knowles. They had a 320 guy, 330 guy that kind of held it
just
together.
eats everything
But
in the middle.
right, exactly. So I think that's part of it. But there's some depth. There's some ability. Like Coleman, I'm super excited about. Like that's a guy. He's a 5-star transfer listed. Like he popped last year. So I think there's huge potential with him.
Well, and he's essentially the highest rated transfer that's not a quarterback, right? I'm probably missing somebody with all this stuff, but let me see. Other than a couple of people that we don't know where they're
I think he
going
was.
and Cam Coleman, Seaton and Prince Will from Ole Miss are ranked higher. Coleman is ranked higher. But other
Mhm.
than quarterbacks, it's Coleman. I mean, that's so confusing. Sorry. Cam Coleman is ranked higher, but Chaz Coleman is a
Yeah,
position of need
I
and
got you.
ranked very highly as well. Okay, I'm going to go to
Right,
linebacker.
and
This
they
is
don't
another one that
have. I was kind of. Yeah, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say they don't have like a 5-star defensive lineman that you could just plug and play coming in. So I think what you said, I think Weathersby's going to be a key depth piece. They need die. They're going to need die. Like actually looking at the 2 deep and everything, they're going to need him to improve. And again, they did bring in the Tulane transfer and Jordan Newman, who's kind of the 6'4", 250. So I think he's going to play some as well. So you can never have enough dudes on defensive line. I probably wish that they have one more just solid pass rushing edge, but we'll see.
And if we get back to like the principles we were talking about last time when we were talking about Knowles, like number one with the bullet is let's stop the flip and run for once. And
Yeah, I mean
so
that's the thing. Yeah,
yeah, the
if
rest
they have to
doesn't
move
matter.
Hobbs to strong side and take a little pass rush off to just not give up 6 yards a run, then I'll take it.
Yeah, and Knowles will get creative to get some pressure. So at the linebacker position, I have it as, and this is weird now in a good way, more talent, but weird. I have it as Campbell, Carter, Spillman. If I just have my best 3 out there,
Mm-hmm. I think that's fair.
it leaves Perlotti in maybe a like coming along role still. It leaves Harmon in a coming along role still. And maybe with their talent level and where they are in the program, that's what you want them to be in, not thrust into a starter role. Like we were excited about Perlotti, but if he doesn't have to be thrust into that role and is playing but not key, that's kind of what we've been asking for.
Mm-hmm.
And it's same with what we've been asking for T-Lander is like contributor, not key to the defense.
Knowles will play some base too. Like it's not all just 3-3-5 or 4-2-5. So he'll play some base. Spillman's interesting because that's not a Knowles linebacker. He's really undersized when you think about what Knowles is like at Ohio State and Penn State and in Oklahoma State. And I think at Oklahoma State, he did lean a little more towards the athletic type, which you had to in the Big 12 during that time. So I wonder if Perlotti might jump Spillman or maybe even T-Lander, or if he just goes like with the amount of safeties and nickels they've added, they might just be like, we're playing two linebackers. That's it. But yeah, I mean, Carter's definitely starting. Campbell's definitely starting. Campbell can also rush the passer a little bit. Campbell has over 10 sacks for his college career, which at a linebacker in college that's not an edge guy is a lot. So,
Well, and
Campbell.
when we want creativity in pass rush, like you have some
Mhm.
guys who can actually fill that role now instead of just being
Right.
on their heels all the time. Okay, into the secondary, which this is like wackadoodle time in the secondary.
Mhm.
And it's, let me say, Vol fans, it's what we asked for, but it's hard to figure out on the fly. And so I'm going to go just across the secondary. So I have Redmond and Lee at the outside corners. I have Metcalf at star, and that was based on some of your feedback on like the role he filled at Michigan. You and I think both
Mhm.
like him. We'll talk about it more
Mhm.
in a second. And then we have Lane and Moss at safety. Both were in the class early from the portal, and a lot of promising things about Moss. Not that there aren't promising things about other ones, but people seemed excited about Moss on film and on
Mhm.
grades and things like that.
And they added DJ Burks, a 2-year starter at App State.
Yep.
So I think he could absolutely compete for one of those. I'm pretty confident Moss and Metcalf are starters. I think Lane could be maybe him and Burks. They have still Farouk is still here.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's possible he gets in as well. I can't guarantee that. They brought in Tevis Metcalf, who can play corner. He played 12 games as a freshman in Arkansas. He got hurt at Michigan, but that's TJ's brother, so they came together. And I mean, Lee, we're very confident Lee from Auburn, who started 2-year starter for them. He's going to be there. Redmond earned a starting spot. I don't know how the safety's going to play out. This safety group, though, what they did is so much better than last year. Like, I mean, is Turntine even in the 3 deep? If these guys are on, like, is he the 6th guy?
Metcalf and Turrentine, and I've just seen more of Metcalf than the other guys. Metcalf and Turrentine could not be more different on a football field.
And Moss, too. I watched some Moss highlights,
Okay.
man. That guy flies. He flies around the football field. So they got so much better at this spot, added some playmakers, some more distinctive players, I think is going to help. And they had to. This room was a disaster last year. I mean, even for the place Farouk popped, it normally was like Farouk popped one play and was bad 10 others. So, and they have Sidney
And
Walton,
again, Farouk as like
who got some
as
playing time as a
safety
freshman.
depth instead of safety. Yeah. The guys who
Yeah.
have contributed,
we were playing,
but shouldn't be key, is what is going to make this defense look so much different, in my opinion. Like the people who in the past we've been like, they have to be extremely good. They are core to this position group. And now those same guys are either backups at a position group, or we just hope they contribute at a position group. Makes the conversation about the defense completely different, in my opinion.
well, I mean, Farouk and Turntime were playing 95% of the snaps, too, in SEC play. Like, you play a safety, you're playing, I mean, this is not the NFL. You know, you're playing 70, 80 snaps at safety in college. You're going to wear down. So to at least be able to be like, okay, we can have these guys play 80% of the snaps instead of 95% is really, really important. Moss, he's a little undersized, but he 5 tackles for loss and 2 picks last year. Like, that's probably more tackles for loss than our safety groups combined last year.
And the other thing too, and this is like the one, I guess, caveat on my frustration with Turntine is like we've talked about, I got so sick of seeing him take bad angles and not make plays. But you were asking this dude to be on the back end and supported the run game when we were getting gassed constantly. It's like, that's just what I don't think he was very good at doing that, but he also was asked to do he was asked to clean up a defense that was the messiest defense in the country, essentially.
Yes. No, they can't. I mean, and again, the other thing is they can play, if we include the star as the safety spot, they now at least have like 5 guys they can rely on in case of injury. That's huge. So that helps. Like if Farouk comes back as depth, it's like cool. Now we have a guy who started 13 SEC games last year. Like that's still nice to have, instead of relying on a freshman or a backup or whatever. I still will say the corner room is a concern.
Depth-wise.
Redmond, yeah, depth-wise. Like Lee and Redmond on the outside are fine, but as we see last year, injuries can absolutely ruin that. They brought in Isaiah Harge. He was a two-way guy. I think he's got like 74 career tackles, so he's played at Colorado. He's a little undersized, but I think he's going to be an outside depth guy. They could probably use one more guy that's played and has experience, because right now it's like Petit and Merritt, and I don't know if that's something I would fully trust. They're actually pretty light in scholarships on there. I know they brought some guys in, like, maybe there's a freshman they trust in, like Zay Anderson. I think it's their highest rated corner coming in. Javonte Smith's another guy, a couple in-state guys. So maybe they think, hey, we can rely on one of those guys next year, but that's probably not something I would fully trust, in my opinion.
Yeah, that can be a little bit concerning. And then I think the other thing is just, I think this is going to look, it's not going to be clean all the time, but one of the things Knowles brings with him is that he can generate pressure and generate
Mm-hmm.
pressure in relatively creative ways. And so the other thing on the back end last year is you had a couple guys who were really, really vulnerable on those money downs, but you also were not generating a whole lot of pressure. And so if there was playmaking ability, they didn't have the opportunities to show that. I mean, we know that like pass rush and playmaking on the back end, it's a loop at a certain point. Like those are informing each other at a certain point. And so when these guys were just on an island and they maybe weren't good enough yet to be on that island, and they were on that island, like you said, for 80 plays without much pass rush, it wasn't gonna come together, and it didn't come together. And so I'm hoping some of the more playmaker oriented plus more pass rush just leads to more turnovers or pass breakups or getting off the flipping field.
Just more athleticism that they've added in general is going to be better. This group was not athletic in any way. Like the only good athlete I would argue that played was Colton, like really good, like NFL athlete was Colton Hood and Joseph. Like that's it. Like everyone else is not, like Tyree West with his size, but other than that, and Carter, like I can't think of anyone else that I would be like, oh, that's a really good athlete we got flying around there.
Yeah, and then the other thing I'll say, and we'll talk about it more into spring, but we got a new kicker. We got Ranvier
Mm-hmm.
from Louisville. I mean, who knows? Who's going to predict college kicker success?
Little swag at that.
Yeah.
The dyed blonde hair. I think it's dyed, but it's still all right.
So
It's
something
better than.
new there.
I don't think he's going to turn into a meme for lack of confidence like the
Yes.
previous kicker.
Yes. And so now I'll run through the offense. And again, fewer new faces, but I think some important ones to talk about. So this is just straight up like what makes the most sense as the two deep right now, not necessarily massive predictions on key positions, just so we know. So I'll start a receiver and just go down. I've got Matthews, Jackson, Staley. I've got on the line Big Dave, Umarov, Pendleton, Mo, Perry. And then I've got Davis at tight end. I've got McIntyre at quarterback right now, and I've got Bishop at running back.
Yeah, I think the offensive line's really interesting. So I think wide receiver, you're right. It's possible Keys might be over Jackson. Like Keys is that good.
Isn't Travis
So
Smith? Come in here and contribute, man. Do your thing.
yeah, exactly. So and Joel Wyatt too. Like Joel Wyatt's
Yep.
got a lot
Physical.
of potential. So right. So absolutely think the wide receiver tight end's good. Davis definitely going to start, especially after JBD transferred out, which was really surprising.
What in the world,
the
dude?
offensive, I know, just I don't know, but go play for Jason Witten, I guess.
Sure.
What I'm really interested in is the offensive line. So
There's
Hurd leaves.
something cooking there.
Yes, Hurd leaves. They bring in Ori Williams at the same time, and you're like, okay, Perry will be either Perry or Umarov will start at guard. They'll move Williams to the right tackle, and that made sense. Or Williams, if he doesn't get better, they'll just move Perry at right tackle, Umarov at right guard. They bring in Donovan Haslam from West Virginia, who had, I think it was like over a 75 PFF grade, didn't allow a sack this past year, 2 year started at West Virginia. That seems like a guy that's going to start. And he's really big, really physical, 6'3", 350, which is not something we see out of these offensive linemen. Like, you don't normally see Tennessee offensive linemen over 325. So I'm pretty confident Perry's still going to start. But I think they brought in Haslam to start at right guard, and now it's Williams and Umarov. It's depth. That's some really nice depth. Plus, they bring in Gabriel Osenda, who's a 5-star offensive tackle. So I'm really curious what your thoughts are. Like, do you think it's going to look different? Like, are Haslam and Williams the starters and Perry Umarov depth? But you would think Perry, if he was going to be not guaranteed a spot, would hit the transfer portal and someone pick him up. So it's kind of interesting.
I think the interesting big picture thing to me is just the bodies we're bringing, the body types we're bringing in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Williams is gigantic. He's like 6'8", 335. And then, like you said, Haslam is huge. He'd be our biggest offensive lineman right now. And part of me wonders, I mean, that's 2 years in a row now where we've intentionally added an interior offensive lineman that is big, big, big. And I think the dirty little secret with Wendell Moe last year was that he actually was vulnerable in pass protection. Heupel's just really good at scheming around things like that. But we saw interior pressure bite us a couple times, and he would get moved off his spot a little bit in pass pro. But in the run game, he was not getting moved off his spot. And so if he progresses on the offensive line and you have another interior guy who's gigantic, and then you have Big Dave who can be physical, and you have Perry who can move people in the run game, there is part of me that, like, the timing of the Williams, but especially the timing of the Haslam thing, is whether this was like the quarterback hunt is going as the quarterback hunt went. And Heupel was like, we got to batten down the hatches on this offensive line because we have to be able to run the ball. Now, that's probably not exactly how the decision-making process happens. But like you said, super experienced guy who's played pretty big-time football and started and is that size. I don't know. I think of it more in the theme of Moe last year, Haslam this year. Heupel's got an interior lineman type that he wants to contribute, and it makes you wonder if that guy's going to be starting early.
Well, and they lost 5 scholarship offensive linemen. Like, they not just lost Hurd, they lost Grant, they lost Max Anderson, they lost Bennett Warren, they lost, I think Duncan's like offensive and defensive line, so I don't know if he necessarily count. That would be 6 technically. So like, they did lose guys. I mean, they had to replace them, but to get Williams, who I think a lot of people think has starter potential, and Haslam, who should be a starter, is kind of a big deal. And they've improved that room. And like I said, Osenda, I think, is a guy who might not redshirt. Like, they think he could probably come in and at least contribute. So they did have to work on that room a little bit. I was just surprised they brought in that many, those 2 guys specifically, as like, those guys could easily be starters.
And we're going to need to be able to run the ball. I guess the one part of the picture I just painted that doesn't make sense is we didn't really do much in the portal running back wise. And we've talked about how Heupel likes his guys at running back, and he's sort of just like, there are times where the run game gets to where it does because it's Josh Heupel's run game. But we wanted that dynamism, and who knows, kind of like how we know that our program kind of is very, I guess, cost conscious when it comes to allocating money to certain positions. And running back has been one of those. And so they didn't necessarily add one of these big names that they probably got paid a pretty penny. Makes you wonder, because I would love to have another really dynamic running back there if that's going to be the plan going in. But I have a lot of faith in the offensive line. And Big Dave and Perry sounds really nice. And then the interior can build from there. And then I like the skill positions. We just need Mike Matthews to step up.
I forgot to mention Satterwhite left too. He's backup center, who playing time in November, which
He seemed really
okay.
happy about his status with the program as he was leaving.
Yeah, exactly. So the running back thing is probably my biggest criticism right
I
now.
think so.
Not because I don't think Bishop is good, but they really could have used a home run hitter. And maybe they believe in Morris. I don't know. Maybe they really think he could be good. They also have Baker back. I know Baker's more of a power back. And they brought in the Tulane kid. So and I know true freshman backup running back at Tulane doesn't sound like super exciting, but Javon Gordon did have pretty good numbers for a playoff team. So I think it's a perfectly fine ad. I just wish they had went after someone legitimate. I know they were after like the Louisville running back for a minute. They were
Mhm.
after a couple other guys that early in there. And it's just like, man, you really wish they could have added somebody like as a true number, bring in a 1B for Bishop
Yeah,
and just
just a
add a
guy
little bit more
who
speed to that.
pops off and can
Mhm.
catch the ball, and so
Mhm.
I'm really interested to see how we feel about that. I'm almost holding back, like, not my thoughts on it, but just, like, letting it ride for now in terms of I'm not willing to panic about that. But I do wonder in the fall how we're gonna feel about that because there's not a ton of depth that we can trust, and there's not any more pop than we had last year, and I'm fine with the people who left that room, but I wish we'd brought someone in, and we'll talk more about kind of who we wish we had brought in when we talk about other portal stuff around the country. I guess, I mean, the other thing is that we're rolling with a quarterback battle, I guess.
Yep. Between two guys, we don't know if they're ready or not.
Yep. This is this is the incorrect sicko opinion. I like this in college football. I
It's
like
old
when
school.
Yeah, I it's not the correct way to do it, but I like it. I like when you have the guy who's been in the program a little bit and might be ultimately less like absolute ceiling talented than the freshman you're bringing in, but has more experience and is clearly like wants to grab the job. And then you have the like back-to-back defending state champion freshman coming in who was the one of the best players in the country. And like I said, I want a world where Faison gets to put up numbers in a really rough way and then put up numbers in a really clean, beautiful way later in his career. Doesn't really happen that way anymore,
Mhm.
which scares the bejesus out of us. But it's what we're doing. And I think there's nothing about the Colorado transfer that says he's going to win the job right away. And so it seems like a GMAC and Faison with depth behind him kind of battle.
By the way, in 3 weeks, Joey gets a ruling on if he can come back and play. So
So
you
we'll
throw
see.
that into the mix as well. And it seems like maybe that's what the staff's saying. Like, you know what? If Joey comes back, awesome. If he doesn't, then we'll move on. It's interesting because Heupel has not had a truly bad quarterback at Tennessee. Like, even when you think about how much Joe and Nico struggled, go look at their numbers. They weren't bad. They weren't awful. They weren't bottom SEC. They were middle of the pack. And we saw what Joey did with, coming in April, brand new system, 4 new offensive linemen, and he had a really solid year. I can't tell because the staff did send feelings for Sorsby, and then they did they put the full court press on Levitt. So it's your natural instinct is, okay, they don't trust McIntyre and Brandon. But at the same time, Staub is such a drop off from Levitt, Sorsby, some other guys that you're almost like, man, like maybe they do now, or maybe they feel that good about Joey. I don't know. Maybe they have different intel than what they did last week, 2 weeks ago. I think it's going to be fun. I mean, Tennessee hasn't really had a true quarterback competition since, I would argue, 2017. I mean, because 21, Hooker was the quarterback, but Milne
It
came
just
in and
changed
everyone knew he
hands.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were like, Milne's going to start in 21, and then Hooker won the job after Milne got hurt. Garantano was the quarterback for 3 straight years in spring, like the number one. This is the first time, like, I honestly don't going into spring, like, I don't know who's going to be the quarterback. And when they brought Joey in, I think we all felt last year like Joey was going to start at least to begin, and then from there, it's crazy though that they had Merklinger be the backup, and like the best he could get was UConn. It's like really, like man, like that
It
we were
just
giving
makes
him the number
it just shows,
two.
I think, that either it's the weirdest thing ever, or we just don't really have like a perfect understanding of how they run that room. And I don't even mean
Mhm.
that like any negative way. I just think it's like apparently there's nothing about that particular pattern that indicates any sort of faith or lack of faith in McIntyre, which sounds crazy, but I think that might just be the truth.
It's like if they had full belief in McIntyre, you think he would have played the bowl game, especially because Joey was hurt. Like Joey had surgery 3 days later.
Yeah.
And I appreciate Joey wanting to play, but it's like if you had that much confidence in McIntyre, you would think like, let's get him on the field and give him a game. I don't know. I am really fascinated by
I'm a
this.
little bit at
It's
I'm a little bit at a loss because
the
it's
whole
also
thing is just
the
kind of crazy.
it is kind of crazy because again, like if you were like, hey, we're not going to tell anyone, but we think Faison is a dude, then you would have brought in another flipping running back because you want to be able to have him hand the ball off.
Yeah, it's a great point.
And so I don't know, like I actually I like the idea of like, hey, this dude who played at a pretty major high school program that has a lot of success over the years and might be the best player they've ever had at Grimsley and is like just like on a pretty long streak now of being like the best quarterback in the country and is super smooth and seems to own the moment and all this different stuff. Came back from injury and just romped through the playoffs and then won. There's every reason in the world in 2004 to believe that that guy should just come in and have some growing pains and get handed the reins. But we're in such a different world now that it just feels so weird. Like it feels like you're putting your eggs in a basket that doesn't even exist anymore.
And it's not like Tennessee made the playoffs and Heupel could be like, hey, if I go 7-5,
I know.
breaking in a true freshman quarterback, I'll be fine. I mean, they went 8-5 this year with an embarrassing loss to Vanderbilt. That he lost a little bit, like, you know, SB Nation always does the, do you have faith or are you happy? Like a yes or no, like rank it. You know, like, he's probably at like 75% approval rating, not 90 like he was, you know, 2 months ago. I mean, Staub's not starting. It's not happening. Like they would have gone after a mid-major starter at that point, or a couple of the D2 kids. And there's been some rumors they still might do that, like bring in a D2 kid as well that's got 2 years starting experience or whatever. Um, I just feel like if George was the guy, there would have been more signs this over the fall.
And there's
And maybe
and there are zero signs.
and there are zero. Like the fact that he wasn't even the backup against New Mexico State, although I still don't know why. It's funny no one, like Heupel wasn't going to give an answer. It's just like they brought Merklinger in for 3 snaps, and then it's like they were hoping like if we make the playoffs, we just want Merklinger on the roster. Like it was like a token. Can you stay if we make the play? I don't understand what happened there, but like, and I mean George had a couple nice throws during the season against non-competition. We're like, oh hey, like the arm strength is there. Like absolutely, he had a great high school career. He was a top 100 consensus player. Like he got up to, I think, to a 5th star by one of the services. So like, it's not like he doesn't have the
Talent, yeah.
talent or the pedigree. I'm just, if it was Brandon, maybe it is. Maybe I'm just not thinking because it's so unique that they're like, yeah, Brandon's the dude and we're going to start him from day one. This is just not how the staff has ever operated.
What I
With a
said to
freshman.
a buddy, I was talking to my buddy who's a Miami fan. He's gonna have a really fun night tonight watching that game.
Mm-hmm.
It was right around the time where they successfully tampered with / recruited Mensa from Duke. And
Allegedly.
yeah, who knows? And he was like, I was like, well, it looks like we're the only team that didn't manage to add one. And we kind of talked it through, and I just think that this staff, advisable or not, I think that the staff says, in terms of like what is the value over the replacement here, or what is the value over the roster here? I think that this staff is really, really
Mhm.
stubborn on why would we take a stab when we actually don't think there's a massive, just noticeable difference between that and what we know will be in the room. And that's either going to work or that's going to be the staff's downfall because I think they're doing that at the running back position. I think they're doing that at the quarterback position. And in some ways, I really like it because it actually looks like a program. But and we see all these big hype guys go to Oklahoma or go to LSU and not really make the impact. Like I think about how excited people were about like a Barry and Brown, and that was pretty lackluster this season. But
Mhm.
you really got to have faith in your system, and at a certain point, a young quarterback, a tough schedule, and the run game being like Bishop and Heupel's force of personality and scheme, things have to go really, really, really well for that to work.
What happened then where it went from Levitt's going to enroll to Prabula to, we'll just take stock.
I know.
Did they get
Did
info
did
on
did
Joey?
Bo end up anywhere?
Yeah, he's at Virginia.
Okay. Yeah. That's probably a good little ad. It's either that they got intel on Joey or Hype was like, "We're running this thing into the ground, and like we're going down with the ship."
Or did they get, and is it Taron Dickens? Is that the name, of the T2 kid
Mhm.
that set like that record or whatnot? Like, is it potential like they're going to get him? But you think that would have been announced already before Staub?
And instead
Like,
of
I don't
Staub,
know.
yeah.
It just, and you have, and here's the other thing, and it was an overall encompassing point. We have 105 scholarship players now. And I
Yeah.
know Tennessee's doesn't have 105 because they're still technically under probation. If you just get Staub and like, cool, we're adding a veteran to the quarterback room that we think's really smart, and then we can still add another guy, and Staub knows he's not competing for the job, like, then that's fine. Like, maybe that's still the plan, or if Joey comes back, whatever. Because you're right, it was a little testy being like, cool, we have 3 quarterbacks going into the year, and Merklinger isn't good, and McIntyre's a 180-pound two freshman. Like, it was scary. Like, we got lucky that Joey did, and Joey took some hits. Like, we got lucky when you actually think about it. So I'm fine adding Staub just in general, but I don't know. If this is the quarterback room, if the Joey thing doesn't work out, I, like you're banking a lot on your ability to develop. And again, I'd feel more confident if they didn't have Sam Levitt on campus for 3 days. Like,
It's so
and
strange.
yeah, and it's not like Levitt's like foolproof. Like, that's a guy that's like couldn't. There's rumors like he might not be ready day one to start because of the foot injury. So it's not like that was a foolproof, like 100%. You can't turn down that guy situation either.
I don't know. I mean, there's again in my college football heart of hearts, there really is a world where I just want to see whoever it is, Mac or Faison, come and sling it. But
It would be awesome.
I know how badly that could go.
Right. And it would be awesome if, like, all of a sudden, like, McIntyre, it's like, cool, that guy could be, I can't believe I'm going to say this. Like, oh, hey, like, he could be a first round pick, or more likely, probably, Faison, or it's like that guy's going to be potentially 1-1 in 2 years. Like, that would be awesome. I'm not denying that. The plan didn't make sense. Like, I'm just trying to follow, why did you have Sam Levitt on campus for 3 days and now we're good? Like, it's not like Levitt's a 5th-year senior. He had 2 years eligibility
I
remaining, I
know.
believe.
And he was that
So
close to, yeah.
it's not like you brought it in like Sorsby, who I think is out of eligibility next year, or Josh Hoover. So I don't know. I think my brain, the way it's working is after Levitt, they got intel on Joey.
Has to be,
And
right? It
because
has to
they
be.
just kind of stuck, like, it looked like Prabilla was going to commit, and then he didn't. And so either maybe they said, like, we're not promising you a starting spot, or they got the intel that Joey's going to be able to come back next year.
We'll know in a couple weeks. I want to close with some thoughts, and you have some thoughts on. So we're here. We are the championship game is nigh. I guess is the easiest way to say it. Miami and Indiana squaring off tonight. Indiana pretty heavy favorite for a national championship game, even though we know there's some talent on that Miami side.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a overall Cinderella story versus an in-season Cinderella story for Miami. It is kind of what it feels like in a funky way. I was talking to my wife, and she and my son are like, I can overcomplicate this and pick Miami, or I can look at the results and pick Indiana. And Indiana is like, maybe that's why they're such a clear favorite. Do you have a lean for the game? Do you think it stays close? And do you have thoughts on what we can learn from these programs in terms of how they've built their teams and how they kind of matriculated to the point they are?
Yeah, watching Indiana versus Oregon, it feels impossible to pick against them. Like what they did. I was so impressed with their defense, honestly.
It was somehow worse than the Bama game.
It was insane. Yeah, I mean, Oregon didn't have a chance. Also, Dan Lanning rematches. Buddy.
Also, Dante Moore.
You're not losing. You're getting blown out now. Like it's a thing. It's a narrative now.
The perfect storm of Dante Moore isn't ready for the moment. He comes back to school, and now Ty Simpson is a New York Jet is just going to be chef's kiss.
That the Ty Simpson post games with the Jet fans will be great. Anyway, I think Indiana's going to win, and I wanted to talk about both teams because I think there's a lesson to be learned here from both of them. Are you leaning Indiana as well?
I'm leaning Indiana partially because it's like I would have to tell myself a story. If I rank what I think the likelihood of outcomes are, the most likely outcome I think is Indiana big. Second most likely is Indiana close. Third most likely is Miami close. Fourth most likely is Miami big. Mm-hmm. And so when I'm at that point, I have to lean Indiana. I mean, there's just not enough. I love Miami's running back, but he's not like 240 and 2 touchdowns explosive. He's more of a workhorse. And I just don't know how they're going to get the explosives that they need.
Did you like my Fernando Mendoza's Jared Goff 2.0 take? Was that a good one?
Hearing both of them talk is just so different.
It is. It is
so hard for
not
me.
The same person. I'm just talking on the field,
but on the field, and I
his
think
ball placement's awesome.
His ball placement is awesome. I don't know that I have a good handle on his overall arm talent because he's just so clean on everything that he doesn't need to rear back and run around and throw it. He's good in structure, which a lot of times is what I ask for out of these quarterbacks.
So I want to do the Athletic Football Show does a thing during the off season where they take the 4 remaining conference championship winners in the NFL or conference finalists and like, what's the biggest takeaway? So I want to do that for Indiana and Miami. You said you liked the idea. So the biggest takeaway from Indiana is how having almost fully developed players means you can really focus on game planning.
They're a very interesting way to think about it, I think.
They're the best game planning team in the country right now. And even to the point where there were fun little Twitter memes and stuff about them like having a cheating system and everything, which I don't believe. But you kind of look how the NFL over the last 20 years, because of practice time and what the NFL's done, and as salaries have increased and everything, and these camps and development places and all that, they don't practice fundamentals and teaching points of the game anymore, like consistently. Like maybe the first 2 weeks of training camp, that's what it is. But practice in the NFL is all about game planning. You're expected to develop and improve in the offseason on your own time, especially when you're paid millions to do so. And I think that's why we've seen so much more offensive creativity in the game over the last 20 years on both sides of the ball in the NFL. So when I'm looking at Indiana, they're the oldest team in FBS. And Indiana is really focused on maybe not the high-level athlete, but players that have really developed already. They're looking for guys that have kind of maxed out their abilities almost and have already learned and adapted the finer points of their positions. And so Indiana coaches don't have to restart drills or spend 30 minutes going over footwork because their guys have spent 3 to 5 years doing that already. And it's been talked about Indiana. They don't use their fully allotted practice time because they don't need it. They just spend 90 minutes implementing game plans and breaking down tendencies to gain this mental advantage and focus more on game planning. And I'm fascinated if more teams adopt this. As player salaries or NIL increase in college and personal trainers and camps continue to grow, do we see more of a focus on this, or do we see focus more on players naturally intelligent with those physical gifts close to maxed out, guys from mid-level programs or power four teams that don't have the best athletes? That way coaches can work on honing their advantages and their schemes. I think it's fascinating as we've gone closer to an NFL model if that does it on the field as well.
The guys who are having a lot of success for Indiana right now are either like significantly older than what you would typically find in the 2 deep, or we're at JMU and they've been in Signetti's system for a while. And so you think about Pons, who had that pick 6 early on. He was at JMU. He's been in Indiana 2 years. It's like these guys, like you said, on the practice field, like their feet are going to be in the right place. Their eyes are going to be in the right place. And so you go into that game with like, I don't know, I just think everything might click a second faster. And I think the thing that brings it all together for them is having a quarterback as precise as Mendoza, where it's like, oh, this guy's in the right spot, ball delivered. This guy's in the right spot, ball delivered. Oh, we've got a one-on-one here, fade route over the top. Suddenly you're not coming back from this. It's just insurmountable. But the play-to-play cleanliness, I guess we'll say, and I think the game that showed up most was the Big Ten championship game against Ohio State, when that was still at the point where it was like, there's every reason in the world that Ohio State's just going to out-talent them. That got washed away from having dudes who were just like absolutely never going to be in the wrong spot from a run fit and play action fit for perspective. And when you do that, especially now that we see it a little more, when you do that to Sayin, he just doesn't have room to breathe. And Dante Moore didn't have room to breathe.
Two guys that don't have a ton of experience.
Exactly.
Either. Two guys who just became starters this year.
Like if they're wanting to develop something on the fly, that's not going to go well because people are always going to be in the right spot. And then you have a defensive staff that's worked together for a long time under Signetti. And so they are doing enough creativity to make people's eyes wrong sometimes, make the opponent's eyes wrong. And I think it's so top of mind because of how that game started against Oregon. But if you're Miami, you better either be as clean as you've ever been or do something you haven't done yet. Because if you're just trying to get a jet sweep to your star freshman, it's going to be cleaned up on the other side. Well, it's going to be stretched out and cleaned up every time.
Think about this, Carson Beck, third-year quarterback, he's seen it all.
And there were a couple different film breakdowns that showed that they were actually doing different stuff against Ole Miss that Ole Miss was not ready for, and that's how they finally overcame that opponent.
Right. I think it's going to be really interesting because it's always been, the Jimmy and Joes in college. And I just wonder if maybe we go, if your ability to coach in terms of game planning and scheming and implementing those things increases more as we enter into this new era of college football. And it makes sense too with the gap. I mean, think about how Georgia just pummeled teams because they were just better than them. They don't really have that anymore. They don't have that.
You think about those Georgia teams who, they've had some success in the NFL, those guys, but some of those guys were not successes in the NFL. They were just really, really, really talented in a group of really, really talented people. Doesn't mean that they were clean. It doesn't mean that they were absolutely elite at everything. They were just in a hell of a system at the time, a hell of a talented system from a Jimmy and Joe's perspective. Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Do you see some of the same stuff in Miami, or is Miami kind of telling a different story?
So I do see a little bit with Miami. Now, what I take away from Miami is that strength and athleticism in your lines still matter. And when I was watching Maui Goa, Bell, their tackles on the outside, Matthew McCoy and Nez Cooper inside, just dominate their matchup against Ole Miss with how they ran the ball. It shows you can still use your offensive line as a weapon to win football games, which makes sense because Cristobal is an offensive line coach his entire career, and they have created this advantage that gives them the ability to dictate the game on their level. And I was thinking about Ohio State, like they ran the ball on them. Like you don't normally see Ohio State unless it's been the 4-year Michigan run dominate. Even against Georgia in 2022, they actually held Georgia's run game in check that year. And then you, of course, look at Miami's defensive line, and we've talked about Ruben Bain, but Hakeem Mesidor is awesome. Like he's great too.
Dynamic,
They
man.
rotate dudes. I think they play like 8 to 10 guys. They don't take a step back. So you still creating depth and intensity and having natural skills shows that you still can absolutely win football games in the trenches. Like, yeah, we talk about players in space and quarterbacks and all that. You can still, run 30, you still run 45 times in college football with your running back and just dominate a game and take over.
Yeah, I think
And
tonight,
Malachi Tony helps.
yeah, Malachi Tony helps a lot, especially when they've learned different ways to move him around the formation. I think tonight, the way Miami does it is genuinely Fletcher goes for 210. Like
Mhm.
if it just turns out that they can't stop him, then that's how they win. And then I think on the other side, again, Indiana could just roll. But if it's close, I think the way that Indiana ultimately wins is Mendoza with his legs. I don't think that'll be the focus, but I think it's Mendoza suddenly having that game where he has, 8 rushes for 64 yards and, you know, overcomes that pass rush, and maybe the lanes aren't perfectly clean on all those pass rushes. He's a big dude. He can get out there and move a little bit. Not great, but enough. And so if it gets tight, I think it's a Mendoza game. And that'll be
Mhm.
really interesting. But it could just be that, I mean, it's hard to beat teams as cleanly as they've beaten teams and think that's going to just disappear.
What's so interesting too is like, yeah, Miami's won the 5 national titles, but none of these players have had this stage other than Beck. Beck's about the only one. And what's funny with Beck is he didn't even play in the playoffs last year because he got hurt. Like he's got, 2 SEC games under his belt, SEC title games, and of course the playoffs this year. So it's not like we've seen in the past where these teams have played in massive games before, they played in national title or conference title games. This is still pretty new for them. I know, you know, yeah. So neither one has like and coaches too. It's not like you've got Kirby or Nick or Ryan Day who have been Dabo, whatever, like, oh yeah, I know how to work this or do this. Like this is brand new for them too. Signetti and Cristobal. Both of them coached in national title games as assistants. And it's just hilarious too. They're both Saban assistants, and you just don't think of them as Saban
Oh,
guys.
no.
Kind of funny when you think about it. Like I don't think most people knew Signetti worked until this year for Saban for 4 years, and then Cristobal was part of the Saban coaching rehab. He was his offensive line coach, I think, for 4 years. Also, Florida International probably going to take a couple strays tonight.
Yeah,
Not
I think so.
like tough break for you guys.
And Cristobal clearly cares a ton about the university, and you like to see that. And so I don't know. There's the silliness and sort of cynicism that creeps in with the portal experience lately. Hopefully, you get to just forget about that stuff and enjoy a crazy good football game. That's what I'm really hoping for. And so get that sour taste out of our mouth just a little bit. And it would be amazing to see Indiana continue to be that surgical. It would also be, in my opinion, amazing to see Miami beat the odds and beat this team that everyone thinks is going to win by 35.
Mm-hmm. I agree. No, um, if Indiana like smokes them, we're gonna have some interesting conversations about
Yeah,
their place all time. It's gonna be really interesting.
it's a very, we're in such a weird transitional period that I don't know what to do with some of it yet. And Miami can dampen those conversations a little bit if they just play the game of their life tonight. So we'll see.
Well, and this could have long term ramifications because if Miami wins this game, do they expand the playoffs? Because right now it's looking more and more they're going to stick with 12 because the Big Ten's determined to get 24 in because, we got to make sure 9-3 USC gets invited. So it's if Miami wins, they were the last team in. It's like gives them more of like we need to go to 16. It's like if you're Notre Dame, you're thinking like this could have been us. Not with that. I don't think that would have happened. But I don't know. There's a lot of interesting long-term ramifications of this title game that we haven't seen before. Like Georgia TCU 2022, there were no ramifications long-term. Like it just didn't really do anything, really didn't change the perspective. This one will, because if Indiana wins, all of a sudden the idea of time to rebuild is dead. It's forever dead in college football. And if Miami wins, it's, hey, we need to expand the playoff, because now it shows that, the number 10 team in the country can win a national title game
against what we are right now considering one of the best teams ever. And so the snapshot of this
one of
moment
the
is
best
Indiana.
teams of the BCS era. Yeah.
Yeah, is Indiana as this like juggernaut. And so we'll see if it continues. We'll see if we learn anything else on the roster. I have absolutely no idea when this stuff cuts off. If they're trying to be a 24/7 business, college football is doing a good job. Not that anyone knows. No one knows the hours, but they just know it's likely something's going on.
Right. I'm very curious to see if Tennessee does anything else in the portal. I wouldn't be shocked if there's one or two more additions. They built some depth out, which again we talked about with the 105. You kind of have to. They lost. I mean, Tennessee lost a ton of people. We had 24 scholarship outgoing players, plus the 13 guys leaving because of graduation or draft. So they had to replace them. But you never know. And your one weird contract, your one weird promise broken that a top guy could get in that you didn't expect, and now you're in on it. So we could be having a discussion next week about a couple different guys as well.
Yeah, and I'm excited for it either way. I mean, golly, my head's been spinning, but I'm excited for it either way. We'll see if we can clean up the too deep along the way. We'll see what we learn in spring, and then some of these really talented freshmen are on campus, and so there's reason to be hopeful, even if everything feels a little bit silly. And then let's go enjoy a national championship football game. It's always awesome.
Last game of the year. Got to enjoy it until August. Thank you guys. Appreciate you all so much. We'll be back next week kind of on normal schedule. I know it was a little weird, but we just thought this would work a little better. We'll do a little basketball talk as well, do a little more in-depth football talk, probably talk a little NFL and what the long-term ramifications for college football. Get a playoff update too. So we'll see where that goes. So appreciate you guys listening. Please follow us on wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, YouTube. Appreciate you guys, and go Vols.